Hi, I'm Andrew Smith with Virginia Farm Bureau's Governmental Relations Department.
And I'm Stephanie Talon, also with Virginia Farm Bureau Government Relations. Welcome to our third installment of Friend of the Farm Chat, where we sit down with legislators who serve on the House and Senate Agriculture Committees and get to know them a little bit better.
Stephanie, good morning. We're very happy to have Senator Dave Marsden with us today from the 37th District. Welcome, Senator Marsden.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
If maybe you could start us off telling us a little bit about yourself and why you first ran for office.
Well, it's something I had never planned on in life. I spent a career in the juvenile justice system in Fairfax County as a probation officer, group home director, and for 17 years, director of the department of, director of our juvenile detention center. And I became president of the Virginia Juvenile Justice Association somewhere around 1989, and got very interested in the political aspects of getting bills through the legislature that advantaged juvenile justice, and became friends with my delegate, a fellow named Jim Dillard. And when I retired in 1999, Jim came to my retirement party, mostly to insult me, but he also asked me to run his campaign. His campaign manager had quit, and I'd been a big fan of his, and so I ran his campaign. And then the position for director of the Department of Juvenile Justice came open. I applied, as did our sheriff, who lost an election that year, Carl P., wonderful man. And so we came down as a team. He is director, me as assistant director. Stayed down for a year and 2.5 years. Last year, Carl went and ran the COPS program for the Bush administration. I stayed on and ran the department for a year, and I was kind of hooked. And when I got back, Jim wanted me to replace him in the legislature. He was a Republican, but supported me as a Democrat to run for that office. It got him in some hot water. But at any rate, we did that, and the rest is history. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. But that's how I got, basically involved in this. And as my day job, for the most part, I've worked with the Justice Department and different entities, traveling to 35 different states, working on juvenile justice issues, trying to reduce youth crime. And I had an interesting assignment the last couple of years working with the nation of Guyana. They did a Juvenile Justice Reform Act that they needed help implementing. So I spent about 6 weeks down there on 2 different occasions to help their facilities transition to a modern juvenile justice system. So it's been great, and I'm currently on agriculture. I chair transportation in the Senate. I'm on rules because I'm a committee chairman. On finance, where I chair the subcommittee on economic development and natural resources, which has played an important part in getting stream exclusion fencing to keep cattle out of the streams. And let's see, what else do I serve on? I think that that pretty much covers it. And but have really enjoyed my tenure in the legislature.
That's great. And you've served on the Senate Agriculture Committee for several years now. Prior to joining, did you have any ties to agriculture or forestry?
Other than raising chickens as a kid in Fairfax County, believe it or not, we had about a dozen hens and the most ornery rooster that ever existed. And if you were out in the yard and they were patrolling the 2-acre little farm we had, it was a farm because it was originally an elementary school in the 1890s, converted to a home in 32. And so we had a horse and we had some chickens, and learned a lot about the care and feeding of chickens. It's hard work, getting in there and cleaning out their pens and learning to not go too near them when they're brooding and that kind of thing, and watching the rooster look over them and going out and staring down buzzards flying around in the sky to protect his flock. So it was an interesting experience, but that's about it. And but it's been a real joy to be on agriculture.
Senator, in our time at the General Assembly, we often hear legislators talk about things that they saw in the legislature they never knew about, or they learned something new. What have you learned by serving on the Senate Agriculture Committee?
Well, just a tremendous amount, and you certainly what concerns me are a number of things. Just to watch our dairy industry dissolve, with so many people getting out of that business. The difficulty that the farm community has had in trying to deal with the changes in public sentiment and in the need for better environmental practices, which for years were not a major concern, and now certainly are, and how difficult it is trying to keep manure and fertilizers out of our streams to restore the Chesapeake Bay. Trying to strike that balance has been very, very difficult to do. You don't want to put farmers in a position or foresters in a position where they can't do what they need to do for all of us, because the agriculture industry is obviously critical to our survival. But at the same time, how do you balance that with the needs of the environment? And I think I've made some stumbles in the past, votes I'd like to take back or change or whatever. But I think what I have learned is a growing sympathy for the speed with which some of the members of the legislature want to move in terms of agricultural practices that improve the environment. When I was director of the Department of Juvenile Justice in my last year, I was out visiting the Beaumont facility out there in Goochland, which is right across the river from the Women's Correctional Center out there. And there were a whole bunch of cattle basically in a wetland, doing their business and what have you. And I said, that obviously drains into the river. And they went, yeah, that's what happens. And you kind of realize that practices like that have to stop. But at the same time, we can't expect our farmers, without help from the government, to be able to transition to practices that will improve that, because they're just not in a financial position to do that in most cases. And so I think, as you saw in this most recent budget, we were able to keep a lot of that money in the budget to assist in that. The only concern I have is whether the farm community is in a position to invest in that shared responsibility with government to do that. So I'm hoping that that will still be a viable program that will move us forward on protecting our state waterways. And but yeah, it has been a real learning experience on the committee.
Thank you.
Senator, you serve a pretty urban area, we'll say, but can you tell us about your district and how agriculture and forestry fit into it?
Well, we're just, I'm really a fairly significant agricultural district now. I think there's up to 11 people in my district growing tomatoes in their backyard. So, we're just exploding up here. So we really don't have, too much. We have a winery, some breweries, things like that sort of fit in with, with the agricultural world. But pretty much that is a thing of the past in my district. What concerns me, more here, and concerns me in the larger scale of things, is that we do have a climate problem in this world and in this country, and to solve that, we need to do three things. We need to create renewable energy. which, you know, hopefully we can do. I love what Novak, the electric cooperative up my way, is doing in Halifax. They have a plant that picks up wood off the forest floors that would turn into methane if left there to rot, and they burn it, and it actually reduces greenhouse gas in that way. You know, that's important, but, you know, we need to create, you know, solar, wind. You know, we're on the way to do that with the Clean Energy Act. We also need to become more efficient. We need to button up our houses and make sure we're using electricity in the you know, the least in the least amount possible. But lastly, if we're going to solve this problem, we need to mitigate the carbon that's already in the air, and that's going to require a huge forestry effort to recreate our forest cover here in the United States. And, you know, there are studies that have been done as to where that needs to be done and what kind of trees it needs to be done with. But I think we need to get on board with that. And I think the agriculture community is a natural partner in helping us do that, you know, through tax advantages, through ways in which unused land can be returned to forest in a quicker fashion. And that's you know, that's a challenge for the future going forward. I've worked some with Salesforce, which is a national tech company, very interested in investing in doing at least 1 billion trees in the United States, and but 1 trillion is a whole lot of trees. But that's what it would it take. From what I've heard, we used to have 5 trillion trees. We're down to 2 trillion, and we need to add 1 trillion back if we're going to mitigate the damage done by the Industrial Revolution since the late 1800s.
Thank you, Senator, and we really appreciate you coming with us today. And Stephanie and I have a couple of brief questions to wrap things up. And mine is simply, when you think of agriculture and forestry, what do you think of?
Well, you know, it is what I think of is how much I've learned about Virginia's largest industry. That it is very diverse. There are all kinds of aspects to the industry of feeding Americans and Virginians than I ever could have imagined, and it is just been an extraordinary learning experience. I wish we would get back to. We did it a couple years ago. We did a tour and watched an oyster operation out in the bay, and we went to some tomato farms and things like that. I wish we could get back to doing more of that. I think Senator Peterson has mentioned that, you know, that's what he would like to do. The problem is obviously COVID has thrown a monkey wrench into that. But when I think of it, it's a fact of how it impacts all of us, how there's something going on everywhere in the Commonwealth that affects, you know, your industry, and how important it is, and you know, the balance that we need to create between your industry and the need for a cleaner environment.
Appreciate that. We welcome any opportunity to bring legislators out to show them firsthand about the ag and forestry industry. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And now we've saved the best question for last. Senator, what is your favorite Virginia-grown product?
Peanuts.
All right. Southeast is going to love that.
Yeah, it is. You know, that's the one thing. I just wish that we hadn't developed massive peanut allergies. That was the one thing I used to count on. Is always, you know, having somebody drop off some peanuts in the office to kind of keep you going. But yeah, I'm a big peanut fan. I got to admit that is, you know, clearly the number one thing, because I think our peanuts are better than anybody else's. And I always look forward to the ag dinner every year to try all the different products. It's very, very cool. And a close number two to that is Rappahannock oysters. You know, they're sweet, they're small, but they're great. And you know, and it's really exciting to me to see the oyster industry coming back.
That's right. Well, having grown up on a peanut farm myself, I completely agree with you on peanuts. They're awesome.
Yeah, they sure are.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. We enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about your background and how you got to the point you are today. And even though you may serve a very urban area with those 10, 11 people growing tomatoes, we appreciate you always asking questions and staying involved in the industry. So thank you again.
All right, stay on top of me now.
Thank you, Senator.
All right, y'all take care.